You're at the grocery store. It's a Tuesday. Nothing special. And you're standing in the aisle doing that thing where you pick up the name brand, look at the price, put it back, grab the store brand, and then just stand there, doing math in your head. Not because you can't afford the extra $1.40, but because somewhere deep in your brain, there's this voice that says you shouldn't, that every dollar matters, that you're one bad month away from trouble. And you know what? For most people, that voice never goes away. It doesn't matter if they make $40,000 or $400,000. That voice just lives there, rent-free, which is ironic, because rent is probably the reason the voice exists in the first place. But here's what nobody told you. There's a number, a specific number. And when you hit it, something shifts in your head. Not everything, not overnight, but something real, something you can actually feel. The name's Frank. And frankly, you're probably closer to a mental breakthrough than you think, and you don't even know it. If you're the kind of person who's tired of financial advice that sounds like it was written by a robot in a suit, hit subscribe. And if this video keeps you from panicking the next time your car makes a weird noise, a thumbs up would be nice. So let's talk about $5,000. And before you roll your eyes and say, Frank, $5,000, that's nothing. That's not even 2 months of rent in most cities. Yeah, I know. I'm not telling you $5,000 is going to change your life. I'm telling you it's going to change your brain. And that's way more important. See, we live in this world where every financial guru on the internet wants to talk about your first 100,000, your first million. They throw around these numbers like confetti at a parade nobody asked for. And meanwhile, you're sitting there with $11 in your checking account on a Thursday, wondering if your direct deposit is going to hit before that subscription you forgot to cancel. Nobody talks about the small numbers, the real numbers, the ones that actually move the needle for normal people living normal lives. And $5,000 is the first one that actually matters, not because of what it can buy, but because of what it does to the way you think about money. Let me explain. The Federal Reserve published their report on the economic well-being of U.S. households, and they found that roughly 37% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. $400. That's a car repair. That's an urgent care visit. That's your dog eating something it shouldn't have, which, if you have a dog, you know is basically a monthly event. So when you're in that 37%, your entire relationship with money is based on fear. Every unexpected expense is a crisis. Every bill is a negotiation. Your financial life isn't about building anything. It's about surviving. You're not playing offense. You're not even playing defense. You're just getting hit. And here's the thing about that mental state. It's not just stressful. It actually makes you worse with money. Researchers at Princeton, and I'm not making this up, Nika published a study in the journal Science showing that financial scarcity literally reduces your cognitive function. They measured it, the equivalent of losing 13 IQ points. 13. That's the difference between being sharp and being foggy, between making a good decision and making a terrible one. So the system is basically rigged. You're broke, which makes you stressed, which makes you dumber with money, which keeps you broke. It's like trying to run a marathon with a backpack full of rocks, and every mile somebody throws in another one. That's where $5,000 comes in. $5,000 is the number where, for the first time, you have a cushion that actually feels real. Not theoretical. Not, well, technically I have some money. Real. Tangible. Sitting there in your account like a little financial bodyguard. And here's why your brain treats it differently than, say, $1,000 or $2,000. At $1,000, you can handle a flat tire. Maybe. If nothing else goes wrong that month, your brain knows this. Your brain does the math, even when you don't ask it to. $1,000 is a speed bump, not a safety net. At $2,000, you get a little breathing room. You can probably handle one medium emergency without going into full panic mode, but your brain still knows, still calculates in the background, that two things going wrong at once would wipe you out. But at $5,000, something different happens. $5,000 covers your car breaking down, and your laptop dying, and a surprise medical bill. Not all at once, necessarily, but your brain starts to believe, for maybe the first time, that you can absorb a hit, maybe even two. And that belief, that's where everything changes. There's actually a term for this in behavioral economics. Researchers call it financial self-efficacy. It's basically your brain's confidence in its ability to manage money and handle financial challenges. And a study published in the Journal of Financial Counseling and Planning found that the single biggest predictor of financial self-efficacy wasn't income, wasn't education, wasn't even financial literacy. It was having liquid savings, actual money you could touch, Money that was there when you needed it. $5,000 is roughly where that switch flips for most people. It's the point where you go from I'm surviving to I have options. And options change everything. Let me paint you a picture. You're driving to work. You hear that sound. You know the one. That grinding, clicking. Something is definitely wrong sound that your car makes when it's decided to ruin your week. Before $5,000, here's what happens in your brain. Panic. Instant. Your chest tightens. You start calculating. How much is this going to cost? Can I put it on a credit card? Which bills can I push? Can I borrow from someone? Should I just ignore it and hope it goes away? Your entire day is destroyed. Not because of the car, because of the money. The car is a mechanical problem. The money is an existential crisis. Now here's the same scenario with $5,000 sitting in your savings. You hear the sound. You think, well, that's annoying. You call a mechanic. You get a quote. It's $800. You pay it. You move on with your life. Same car, same sound, same repair. Completely different experience. Because $5,000 didn't fix the car, it fixed the panic. And this isn't just about emergencies. This is about how you make every single financial decision every single day. Because when you're operating from a place of scarcity, every decision is a trade-off. Every yes to one thing is a no to something else. Buy groceries or pay the electric bill, fix the car or make rent. It's exhausting. And it never stops. But when you have $5,000 as a floor, something beautiful happens. You start making decisions based on what's smart instead of what's urgent. You stop choosing between bad options and start actually having good ones. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks consumer spending. And here's something interesting. Households with emergency savings of 3 to 6 months, which for many Americans starts right around that $5,000 mark, spend an average of 15% less on interest and fees annually. 15%. You know what that is? That's the penalty for being broke. Late fees, overdraft charges, high interest debt because you had to use a credit card for an emergency, payday loans, all of it. $5,000 doesn't just sit in your account. It actively saves you money by keeping you out of the penalty box. And here's where it gets really interesting. The psychological shift at $5,000 isn't just about safety, it's about identity. There's a concept in psychology called financial identity. It's basically how you see yourself in relation to money. Are you a saver or a spender? Are you someone who's good with money or bad with it? Are you building wealth or just getting by? And for most people, that identity is set pretty early and pretty deep. If you grew up broke, if you've always lived paycheck to paycheck, your financial identity is person who doesn't have money. And that identity drives behavior. You don't save because you're not a saver. You don't invest because that's for rich people. You don't plan for the future because you're too busy putting out fires in the present. $5,000 starts to crack that identity. Not shatter it, crack it, because for the first time, you have evidence that contradicts the story you've been telling yourself. You look at your account, and there's money there. Money you saved. Money you didn't touch when you wanted those new shoes or that weekend trip. Money that proves you can do this. And once that crack forms, it spreads. Fidelity published data from their retirement accounts showing that savers who reached their first $5,000 in savings were significantly more likely to continue saving and to increase their savings rate over time compared to those who never hit that threshold. It's not a coincidence. It's momentum. It's identity shifting. Think of it like this. You know how when you start working out, the first 2 weeks are absolute misery? Everything hurts. You see zero results. Your brain is screaming at you to quit. But somewhere around week 3 or 4, something clicks. You don't hate it as much. You start seeing tiny changes, and suddenly you're the person who goes to the gym. Not because you have to, because that's who you are now. $5,000 is week 3 of your financial fitness journey. It's where the pain starts to become progress, where the sacrifice starts to become identity. Now, let me tell you something that might sting a little, because I've seen this happen 1,000 times. Somebody works their butt off, cuts expenses, picks up extra shifts, sells stuff they don't need, and they finally hit $5,000 in savings. And you know what they do? They spend it, not on an emergency, not on something they need, on a reward, a vacation, new clothes, a gadget, something to celebrate. And look, I get it. You worked hard. You want to feel like it was worth it. But that's like training for a marathon, crossing the finish line, and then immediately eating 5 pizzas and never running again. The 5,000 isn't the finish line. It's the starting line. It's the foundation. And if you blow it on a celebration, you don't just lose the money. You lose the momentum. You lose the identity shift. You go right back to being the person who doesn't have money. And the next time you try to save, your brain remembers that it didn't last. And it's even harder to start again. So here's what you do instead. You hit 5,000, you take a breath, maybe, you treat yourself to something small. A nice dinner, not a nice vacation, a nice dinner. And then you set a new target because the magic of 5,000 isn't the number. It's the proof that you can get there. And if you can get to 5, you can get to 10. And if you can get to 10, the game changes completely. Because here's what happens after 5,000. And this is the part that nobody talks about because it sounds too good to be true. But it's just math. From 0 to 5,000, every dollar is a grind. You feel every sacrifice, every skipped coffee, Every no to friends when they want to go out. It's painful and slow, and it feels like it takes forever. But from 5 to 10, it's faster. Not because you're making more money necessarily, but because you've built the habits. You've automated the savings. You've cut the fat from your budget. And psychologically, you're not starting from zero anymore. You're building on something. There's a Vanguard analysis that shows the average time to save the first 5,000 is roughly twice as long as the time to save the second 5,000, even controlling for income. Twice as long, because the first 5,000 is you fighting against every instinct, every habit, every piece of your old identity. The second 5,000 is you with momentum, and then something else kicks in. Compound interest. Now, at 5,000, compound interest is, let's be honest, it's not exactly setting the world on fire. In a high-yield savings account paying around 5%, which is roughly what you can get these days, 5,000 earns you about $250 a year. That's not retirement money. That's like a decent pair of shoes. But here's what matters. It's money you didn't work for. It showed up while you were sleeping, while you were watching TV, while you were living your life, and your brain notices. Your brain goes, wait, money can just appear without me trading hours for it? And that realization, that tiny, almost insignificant realization, is the seed of wealth-building thinking. Because up until that point, the only way you've ever gotten money is by working for it. Hours for dollars, time for money. And that's a trap, because there's a ceiling on your time. There are only so many hours, but there's no ceiling on what your money can earn while you're not looking. At 5,000, the earnings are small. At 50,000, they start to get interesting. At 500,000, they're paying your rent. But it all starts with that first $250 that showed up without you lifting a finger. Let me be frank with you for a second. The reason most people never build wealth isn't because they don't make enough money. It's because they never get past the mental barrier. They never reach the point where their brain shifts from money is for spending to money as a tool. And $5,000 is, for most people, where that shift becomes possible. Not guaranteed, possible. You still have to choose it. You still have to protect it. You still have to build on it. But the door opens at 5,000 in a way that it simply doesn't at 500 or 1,000 or even 3,000. And here's one more thing that I think matters. When you have $5,000 saved, you start to see the world differently. You notice things, like how your coworker just bought a brand new car and you know exactly what they make. And you think, that's a $600 monthly payment on a $42,000 salary. And you feel not jealous, not envious, just aware. You start seeing the traps that used to catch you. The 0% APR that turns into 24% after 12 months. The low monthly payment that costs 3 times more than paying cash. The subscription you forgot about that's been bleeding $12 a month for 2 years. You see all of it now because you're not in survival mode anymore. You're in awareness mode, and awareness is the first step to control. So here's what I want you to take away from this. $5,000 is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. In a world where a hospital visit can cost you 10 grand, and a house costs you $500,000, $5,000 is a drop in the bucket. But it's not about the money. It's about what the money does to the 6 inches between your ears. It rewires your relationship with risk. It breaks the cycle of scarcity thinking. It gives you evidence that you're capable of building something. It opens the door to compound growth, not just financially, but psychologically. It shifts your identity from someone who's broke to someone who's building. Nobody told you that $5,000 could do all that. Your bank didn't tell you. Your school definitely didn't tell you. And the financial gurus on the internet were too busy talking about millions to mention the number that actually matters. But now you know. And the only question is what you're going to do about it. Look, I'm not going to stand here and tell you it's easy. It's not. If it were easy, 37% of the country wouldn't be sweating over $400. But I will tell you this. It's possible. It's specific. It's not some vague, just save more money nonsense. It's $5,000. That's the target. That's the number where your brain starts working for you instead of against you. So run your numbers. Figure out what you can put away each month, even if it's $50, even if it's 20, because $20 a month gets you to 5,000 in about 20 years. And yeah, that's a long time. But $100 a month, that's just over 4 years. And $200 a month, just over 2 years. 2 years to fundamentally change the way your brain processes money. 2 years to break out of the scarcity trap. 2 years to become someone who has options. You're not broken. Your brain isn't broken. It's just been operating without a safety net. Give it one. $5,000. That's it. That's the starting line. And frankly, you've been standing at zero long enough.